Today, I will tell you a story that began with 4 words at my daughter's kitchen table. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're becoming a burden, Mom." What happened after that? Well, let me just say this. Within 48 hours, I had emptied every joint account we shared and transferred it all to someone who actually deserved it. And when her credit card started declining at that fancy spa weekend, I knew my message had been received loud and clear. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, and don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Now let me take you back to that morning in Dallas, Texas. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 69 years old. I spent 40 years as an elementary school teacher, working extra tutoring jobs to put my daughter Jennifer through college and law school. I thought I'd raised her to value family above everything else. How wrong I was. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. I had driven over to Rebecca's house in Highland Park, one of those neighborhoods where the houses cost more than most people make in a lifetime. I'd brought homemade cinnamon rolls, still warm from the oven, using my mother's recipe that Rebecca used to beg me to make when she was little. But when I walked into that spotless kitchen with its marble countertops and designer everything, something felt different. Jennifer was sitting at her breakfast bar, laptop open, phone pressed to her ear. She was talking to someone about vacation properties in Aspen, laughing about finally having the financial freedom to live properly. She barely looked up when I set the rolls down, just held up one finger like I was some kind of interruption. When she finally ended her call, she turned to me with this look, not the warm smile I remembered from her childhood, but something cold and calculating. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, closing her laptop with a sharp click. I pulled out a chair, expecting one of our usual conversations about her work or maybe plans for the holidays. Instead, what came next shattered everything I thought I knew about my own daughter. "You're becoming a burden," she said flatly. "David and I have been talking, and we think it's time you considered alternatives." I felt like she'd slapped me. "Alternatives to what, honey?" "To living independently. You're 72, Mom. You shouldn't be driving anymore. You shouldn't be living alone in that big house. It's irresponsible." I stared at her. This was my daughter, the little girl I'd rocked to sleep, the teenager I'd stayed up all night, helping with college applications, the young woman whose law school loans I'd co-signed when no bank would take the risk. "Rebecca, I'm perfectly capable of—" "No, you're not." Her voice was sharp now, like she was arguing a case in court. "Last week you forgot to turn off the stove. 2 weeks ago, you got lost coming home from the grocery store. Both of those things were lies, complete fabrications." But she said them with such conviction that, for a moment, I almost doubted myself. "We found a lovely assisted living facility," she continued, pulling out a glossy brochure. "Sunset Manor. It's only 20 minutes away, and they have wonderful activities. Bingo on Tuesdays, craft time on Thursdays." I picked up the brochure with trembling hands. The place looked nice enough, but the monthly cost at the bottom made my heart stop, and $7,800 per month. My entire pension wouldn't even cover half of that. "Rebecca, I can't afford this." She smiled, then not a warm smile, but the kind of smile lawyers probably practice in mirrors. "That's where the house comes in. We sell your house, use that money for the facility costs, and of course, David and I would handle all the financial arrangements. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing." Sell my house, the house where I'd lived for 30 years, where I'd raised Rebecca after her father died, where every room held memories of our life together. "Mom, be practical. You don't need all that space. And frankly, the property taxes alone are ridiculous. David says we could get at least $450,000 for it in this market." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about my safety or my well-being. This was about money, my house, my life savings that I'd worked so hard to build. You see, 5 years ago, when Rebecca was going through her divorce, she'd been in a financial bind. The law firm she worked for was going through layoffs, and her ex-husband was fighting her for everything. She came to me crying, desperate, begging for help. So I did what any loving mother would do. I added her name to my bank accounts, made her a co-signer on everything, even put her on the deed to my house. "Just temporarily," she'd said, "just until I get back on my feet." But temporary had become permanent. And now, sitting in her designer kitchen, I realized she wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to control me. "I need to think about this," I said quietly, standing up from the table. "There's nothing to think about, Mom. David's already contacted a realtor. We have someone coming to look at the house Thursday morning." The cinnamon rolls sat untouched on the counter, growing cold, just like the warmth between my daughter and me. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I pulled into my driveway and looked up at my house, my home, I felt something break inside me. But it wasn't my spirit that broke. It was my illusions. That night, I sat in my living room surrounded by 30 years of memories, photos of Rebecca's graduation, her wedding, family Christmases. In every picture, she was smiling, laughing, hugging me tight. When had that little girl turned into this cold stranger who saw me as nothing more than a source of income? I pulled out the documents I kept in my safe, the bank papers, the deed, all the things I'd signed 5 years ago when I trusted my daughter with everything I had. I read through them carefully, remembering the banker's warning that I'd brushed off at the time. Joint ownership means either party can make decisions without the other's consent. I thought it would never matter. I thought Jennifer would always look out for me. But as I sat there in the quiet of my home, I realized something important. Those same papers that gave Jennifer power over my assets, they gave me power too. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. My nephew Ryan answered on the second ring. Aunt Dorothy, is everything okay? Ryan was Jennifer's cousin, but they'd never been close. He was 31, working as a financial planner, and had recently started his own practice. More importantly, he was honest, kind, and had never asked me for a dime. Ryan, I need your help, I said. And I need you to promise me you won't tell Jennifer about this conversation. Of course, Aunt Dorothy, what's going on? I told him everything. About the assisted living facility, about Jennifer's plans to sell my house, about how she'd made me feel like a burden in my own daughter's life. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Aunt Dorothy, Ryan said finally, are you telling me Jennifer wants to put you in a home against your will and sell your house to pay for it? That's exactly what I'm telling you. And she has access to all your accounts? Every single one. Another pause. Then, Aunt Dorothy, I think we need to have a very serious conversation about protecting your assets. Can I come over tomorrow? Yes, I said, feeling something stir in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Yes, I'd like that very much. After I hung up, I walked through my house one more time. This was my sanctuary, my haven, the place where I'd built a life. Jennifer wanted to take it away from me, to lock me up in some facility where I'd slowly fade away while she spent my life savings on ski trips and designer handbags. But I wasn't fading away. Not yet. And I wasn't going down without a fight. I stood in front of the mirror in my hallway looking at my reflection. Gray hair, yes. Wrinkles, definitely. But my eyes were still sharp, my mind was still clear, and my backbone was still made of steel. Jennifer, I whispered to my reflection, you have no idea who you're messing with. What my daughter didn't know was that while she was planning my future in that assisted living facility, I was about to take back control of my own life. And when I was done, she'd realized that underestimating a 69-year-old woman who'd spent 4 decades managing rowdy classrooms and teaching children to think for themselves was the biggest mistake she'd ever made. That's when I decided they had messed with the wrong grandmother. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see Jennifer's cold expression, hear her calling me a burden. I kept replaying the conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every gesture, the way she dismissed my feelings, the casual cruelty in her voice when she talked about alternatives for my life, the calculated manner in which she'd already contacted facilities and realtors without my consent. I got up at 5 a.m. and made coffee, my hands trembling slightly as I measured the grounds. 40 years of teaching had taught me to recognize manipulation when I saw it, but experiencing it from my own daughter was devastating in ways I'd never imagined. But by morning, something had crystallized in my mind. The hurt was still there, raw and aching, but it had transformed into something else entirely: determination. Ryan arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the kind of serious expression that told me he understood exactly how grave this situation was. Dorothy, he said, giving me a warm hug, I've been thinking about our conversation all night. What Jennifer is trying to do is not just wrong, it's potentially financial abuse. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd graded thousands of papers over the years, where I'd helped Jennifer with her homework when she was little. Now we were using it to plan how to protect myself from her. Ryan spread out documents across the table. First, let me understand exactly what we're dealing with. You said Jennifer has access to all your accounts. Everything, I confirmed. When she was going through her divorce 5 years ago, she was desperate. Said she needed help rebuilding her credit, getting back on her feet. So I added her to my checking, savings, even my investment accounts. I thought I was being a good mother. Ryan shook his head grimly. And the house? She's on the deed as joint owner. The lawyer said it would make things easier if something happened to me. Avoid probate, he said. Aunt Dorothy, I need you to understand something. Legally, Jennifer can sell this house without your consent. She can withdraw money from those accounts without your permission. Everything you've worked for your entire life, she can take it all. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I squared my shoulders. Then what do we do? Ryan smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. We use the same laws that give her power against her. You see, joint ownership works both ways. You can remove funds from those accounts just as easily as she can. And there are things we can do to protect your assets that she probably doesn't even know about. For the next 3 hours, Ryan walked me through a plan that was both elegant and devastating in its simplicity. He brought a comprehensive folder with multiple strategies, legal precedents, and step-by-step procedures. We would create new accounts at a different bank, ones Jennifer didn't know about and couldn't access. We would transfer the bulk of my assets to these protected accounts using my legal right as joint account holder. And we would use a legal tool called a revocable trust to ensure my wishes were honored with Ryan as the successor trustee. The first step, Ryan explained, pulling out bank forms, is opening completely new accounts in your name only. We'll do this at First National. They have excellent security protocols, and they're not connected to your current bank. Jennifer won't even know these accounts exist. I watched as he laid out the paperwork methodically. What about my pension and Social Security? We'll redirect everything to the new accounts, your automatic bill payments, your investment dividends, everything. It'll take about 48 hours to complete all the transfers, but once it's done, Jennifer will only have access to whatever minimal amounts we leave in the old accounts. How minimal? I asked. Ryan did some quick calculations. We'll leave just enough to keep the accounts active, maybe $2,500 total across all accounts. Enough that she won't immediately notice something's wrong, but not enough for her to do any real damage. The beauty of this approach was becoming clear to me. So when she tries to access my money for her facility or house sale plans, she'll find almost nothing. Ryan finished with a grim smile. And here's the really beautiful part. We're going to let her make the first move. We won't tell her anything. We'll just wait and see what she does when she discovers the accounts are nearly empty. The beauty of this, Ryan explained, is that it's completely legal. You're not stealing from Jennifer because this money was never hers to begin with. You're simply protecting yourself from someone who's trying to exploit you. But won't she notice when the accounts are empty? Ryan's smile turned slightly wicked. Oh, she'll notice, but by then, it'll be too late. And here's the really beautiful part. We're gonna let her make the first move. He explained that Jennifer would likely try to access the accounts within the next few days, especially if she was serious about putting me in that facility. When she did, she'd find them nearly empty, except for small amounts to keep them active. She'll panic, Ryan said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. She'll call you, probably accuse you of hiding money or being irresponsible with your finances. That's when you'll know for certain what her true intentions are. If she was really just concerned about your welfare, she'd ask if you needed help or if something was wrong. But if this is about money, and we both know it is, she'll immediately demand to know where it went. I felt a surge of satisfaction at the thought. And what do I tell her? You tell her you have no idea what she's talking about? You're just a confused old lady, remember? How could you possibly understand complex financial transactions? Maybe you moved some money around, but you can't remember where. Maybe you made some investments, but you're not sure what kind, play into every stereotype she has about your supposed cognitive decline. The irony was delicious. Jennifer wanted to paint me as incompetent to justify her control over my life. Now that supposed incompetence would be my shield. But Ryan, I said, a worry nagging at me. What if she gets suspicious? What if she starts investigating or asking the bank questions? That's where the beauty of this plan really shines, Ryan explained. Everything we're doing is completely legal. You have every right to move your own money wherever you want. Jennifer might be listed on the accounts, but you're the primary account holder. The banks will tell her that you made the transfers, but they won't tell her where the money went. That would violate privacy laws. We spent another hour going over contingency plans. What if Jennifer tried to contest the transfers? What if she really did pursue having me declared incompetent? What if she discovered the new accounts somehow? The key, Ryan emphasized, is documentation. Starting today, you're going to keep detailed records of every interaction with Jennifer. Write down exactly what she says, when she says it, who else is present. If she tries to claim you're incompetent, we'll have proof that you were thinking clearly and making rational decisions to protect yourself. He handed me a composition notebook, the same kind I'd used for lesson planning during my teaching career. This is your insurance policy. Date every entry. Be specific about quotes and keep it somewhere safe. If Jennifer tries to challenge your competency in court, this journal will be crucial evidence. We spent the rest of the morning at First National Bank, and I'll never forget the transformation in the atmosphere as our situation became clear. At first, the banker, a professional woman in her 40s named Carol Martinez, was hesitant about an elderly woman making such major financial changes. I could see the concern in her eyes, probably wondering if she was witnessing some form of elder abuse or coercion. But when Ryan explained the situation and showed her the legal documents we'd prepared, along with the documentation of Jennifer's threats and unauthorized real estate consultation, Carol's expression changed completely. Her professional demeanor remained, but I could also see genuine anger on my behalf. "Mrs. Patterson?" Carol said gravely, leaning forward across her desk. "You absolutely have the right to protect your assets from exploitation, even if it's coming from family members. Actually, especially if it's coming from family members. Let's make sure your money is completely secure." The process took nearly 2 hours, but it was thorough and comprehensive. We opened new checking and savings accounts with enhanced security protocols, special passwords, verification procedures, and alerts that would notify me immediately of any attempt to access account information. Carol walked us through every step, explaining each security measure and making sure I understood exactly what we were doing. "We're also setting up automatic transfers," Ryan explained as Carol processed the paperwork. "Your pension will be deposited directly into these new accounts starting next month. Your investment portfolio will be transferred from your old firm to our wealth management division here. Even your automatic bill payments, utilities, insurance, mortgage will all be switched to the new accounts." As we completed each step, I felt a growing sense of empowerment that I hadn't experienced in months. For the first time since Jennifer's ultimatum, I was making decisions about my own life instead of having them made for me. It was intoxicating. "No," Carol said, printing out our final documents. "Let's talk about the transfer amounts. You said you want to move most of your liquid assets?" I looked at the account statements Ryan had brought. "I want to transfer $37,000 to $5,000 from the various accounts Jennifer has access to. Leave just enough in each account to keep them active and avoid closure fees." Carol nodded, making notes. "That leaves approximately $200 to $400 distributed across your old accounts, enough to keep them open but not enough for any significant transactions." "Perfect," I said, feeling a thrill of satisfaction. Jennifer thought she was so clever, planning to drain my accounts for her own purposes. She had no idea I was about to beat her to it. "What about the house?" I asked as we drove back home, the folder of new bank documents secure in my lap. "That's much trickier," Ryan admitted, his expression becoming more serious. "Since Jennifer is on the deed as joint owner, she does have legitimate legal claim to the property. But there are several strategies we can use to protect your interests." He pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine before continuing. "First, we're going to get the house professionally appraised by someone completely independent. I know an appraiser who has no connection to Jennifer or David's network. Then we're going to document everything about your sole ownership and maintenance of the property." "What kind of documentation?" "Everything. 30 years of property tax payments, utility bills, maintenance receipts, improvement invoices. We'll photograph the current condition of the house, create a timeline of all the upgrades and repairs you've funded yourself. We'll get statements from neighbors confirming that you've been the sole occupant. The goal is to establish that while Jennifer may be on the deed, you've been the actual owner in every practical sense." This made sense to me. Jennifer had never contributed a penny to the house's upkeep, never paid for repairs or improvements, never even helped with yard work. She treated it like a vacation home she could visit when convenient. And then we wait and see what she does. If she tries to force a sale, we'll have grounds to contest it in court. We can argue that she should compensate you for 30 years of sole financial responsibility before any profits are divided. We can also file for what's called partition by sale, essentially forcing her to either buy out your interest or accept a court-supervised sale where your contributions are properly accounted for. Ryan was clearly in his element, thinking through legal strategies, with the kind of precision that reminded me why I'd called him for help. At the very least, we can slow down any sale process, long enough to explore other options. And here's the key. If she's really planning to have you declared incompetent, any attempt to sell the house while that's pending would look terrible in court. It would support our argument that she's trying to exploit you. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. "Ryan, I can't thank you enough for this. You're saving my life." "Aunt Dorothy, you're saving your own life. I'm just helping you with the paperwork." He squeezed my hand gently. "But I have to ask, are you prepared for how Jennifer is going to react when she realizes what's happened?" I thought about my daughter's reaction when I'd refused to let the realtor in, how quickly her voice had turned cold and threatening. She's going to be furious. Beyond furious, she's going to feel betrayed, outsmarted, and financially threatened. People do dangerous things when they're cornered like that. She might try to retaliate through the incompetency proceedings, or through social pressure, or by turning other family members against you. The weight of what we were doing settled on me. This wasn't just about money. It was about permanently altering my relationship with my daughter. Once I moved those funds, there would be no going back to the way things were. Are you having second thoughts? Ryan asked gently. I looked up at my house, the home I'd lived in for 30 years, where I'd raised Jennifer, where I'd built a life. Jennifer wanted to take it away from me and lock me up in an institution. She'd threatened to have me declared mentally incompetent. She'd called me a burden. No, I said firmly, no second thoughts at all. That afternoon, Ryan left me with a folder full of documents and a new sense of empowerment. For the first time in days, I felt like I had some control over my situation. But Jennifer wasn't done with her surprises. Thursday morning arrived crisp and clear, and I was in my kitchen making breakfast when I heard a confident knock at my front door. Through the peephole, I could see a woman in a sharp business suit holding a clipboard and a professional-looking measuring tape. Even before she spoke, everything about her screamed expensive real estate agent. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Sandra Wells from Prestige Properties. Your daughter Jennifer sent me to conduct a comprehensive market analysis on your home. She said you were expecting me and eager to get the property evaluated as quickly as possible. I stared at her through the barely opened door, feeling my blood pressure spike. Jennifer hadn't been bluffing about moving forward with selling my house. She was actually proceeding as if my opinion didn't matter at all, as if I were already some incompetent ward under her control. I'm sorry, I said calmly, drawing on 4 decades of experience dealing with difficult situations in the classroom, but this isn't a good time. You'll need to reschedule. Sandra looked genuinely confused, glancing at her expensive watch and then back at her clipboard. But Jennifer was very specific about the timing. She said, you had an important appointment this afternoon and wanted to get the house evaluation completed first. She emphasized how crucial it was to move quickly with your transition plans. Transition plans? The phrase made my skin crawl, as if I were some kind of business asset being liquidated, rather than a human being with feelings and preferences about my own life. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, I replied, still maintaining my composure, though I wanted to slam the door in this woman's face. They never authorized any market analysis. I'm not interested in selling my home, and I certainly didn't agree to have it evaluated without my explicit written consent. Hotel. Sandra pulled out her phone, clearly flustered by this unexpected resistance. Maybe there's been some miscommunication between you and Jennifer. Let me call her right now and clarify the situation. You do that, I said firmly, and closed the door. I stood behind the closed door listening to Sandra's muffled voice as she spoke with Jennifer on the phone. I couldn't make out the exact words, but the tone was definitely one of confusion and growing concern. After about 5 minutes, I heard her heels clicking back down my front walkway and the sound of a car door slamming. I made myself a cup of tea and sat down to wait. I knew what was coming next. 23 minutes later, I was watching the clock. My phone rang. Jennifer's name flashed on the screen with an angry red glow that seemed to match what I imagined her mood to be. I could practically feel her fury radiating through the device. I let it ring 4 times before answering, wanting her to stew in her anger and frustration for just a bit longer. Mom, what is wrong with you? She snapped before I could even say hello. Sandra just called and said you refused to let her in? We discussed this. We agreed that the house needs to be properly evaluated before we can move forward with your care plan. My care plan? I kept my voice level and measured. The same tone I'd used with unruly students who thought they could intimidate me. Jennifer, I never agreed to any care plan. I told you I needed time to think about your suggestions. Time to think? Her voice was rising now, losing the carefully controlled professional composure she usually maintained. Mom, you don't have the luxury of unlimited time to make these decisions. You can't keep living in denial about your limitations. David and I are trying to help you make responsible choices about your future, but you're being completely unreasonable and frankly selfish. I'm being selfish by wanting to stay in my own home, by wanting to be consulted about major decisions affecting my life. Yes, you are being selfish. Jennifer's voice cracked with anger. You're 69 years old, Mom. You have no business living alone in a house that size. What if you fall and break a hip? What if you have a medical emergency in the middle of the night and no one finds you for days? What if you forget to turn off the stove and burn the whole neighborhood down? I listened to her rant, marveling at how she managed to convince herself that this was genuinely about my welfare rather than her financial gain. Every argument she made was purely hypothetical, based on disasters that hadn't happened and might never happen. But what had actually happened was her trying to sell my house without my permission and threatening to have me declared incompetent when I resisted. Jennifer, I interrupted when she paused to take a breath. I appreciate your concern for my safety, but I'm not selling my house and I'm not moving to Sunset Manor. If you're truly worried about my well-being, we can discuss other options: home health aides, medical alert systems, regular check-ins with family or neighbors, but I will not be railroaded into decisions about my own life without my consent. There was a long pause. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice had dropped to that dangerously quiet tone that had always preceded her worst childhood tantrums. Mom, I think you're experiencing some serious cognitive issues. This entire conversation proves it. You're not thinking clearly about what's in your best interest. My thinking is perfectly clear, Jennifer. No, it's not. And frankly, I'm becoming increasingly concerned about your ability to manage your finances responsibly as well. David and I have been discussing this situation extensively, and we think it might be time to consider having you professionally evaluated for mental competency, for your own protection, of course. There it was, the threat Ryan had warned me about, delivered with the cold precision of a legal ultimatum. Jennifer wasn't pretending this was about love or maternal care anymore. She was explicitly threatening to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could seize complete control of my life and my assets. I see, I said quietly, amazed at how calm and steady my voice sounded when molten fury was coursing through my veins. Well, Jennifer, if that's truly how you feel about your mother's mental state, I think this conversation has run its course. Mom, don't you dare hang up on me. We need to discuss the practical arrangements that have to be made. The realtor needs proper access to evaluate the house, and Sunset Manor requires a substantial deposit to hold your reserved spot. These things can't wait indefinitely while you're in denial. You're absolutely right, I said with sweet politeness that I knew would infuriate her. These things certainly can't wait. Goodbye, Jennifer. I hung up and immediately reached for the composition notebook Ryan had given me, with shaking hands, not from fear, but from pure rage. I wrote down every word of the conversation I could remember, along with the date, time, and Jennifer's explicit threat to have me declared incompetent. This would be crucial evidence if she actually tried to follow through. My hands were trembling with fury. How dare she threaten to have me declared mentally incompetent? How dare she try to steal my independence, my dignity, and my right to make decisions about my own life? The little girl I'd raised, the daughter I'd sacrificed for, was now treating me like a defective appliance that needed to be disposed of. I called Ryan immediately. She just threatened to have me declared incompetent, I told him without preamble, my voice tight with anger. What? Are you serious? Dead serious. Said she and David think I need a professional competency evaluation for my own protection. She also told me she's already put a deposit down at Sunset Manor and that the realtor needs access to my house whether I consent or not. Ryan was quiet for a moment, and I could practically hear his legal mind processing this escalation. Aunt Dorothy, this changes everything. If they're willing to go that far, it means they're not just opportunistic, they're committed to this course of action. We need to move much faster than I originally planned. Are you ready to execute our plan today? I looked around my living room at the family photos that included pictures of Jennifer as a laughing child, at the furniture I'd carefully chosen and paid for over the years, at the life I'd built through decades of hard work and careful financial planning. Jennifer wanted to tear it all down for her own financial gain, and she was willing to destroy our relationship and my reputation to do it. Yes, I said firmly, surprised by the steel in my own voice. I'm ready. Good. I'm going to make some calls right now. By close of business today, your assets will be completely protected. And Aunt Dorothy? Yes. Once we do this, there's no going back. Jennifer is going to realize what's happened, and she's going to be furious beyond anything you've seen before. She might try to retaliate legally, socially, even emotionally. She could turn other family members against you, spread rumors about your mental state, or escalate the competency proceedings. Are you prepared for that level of conflict with your own daughter? I thought about my daughter, the little girl who used to crawl into my lap when she had nightmares, who used to tell me I was the best mom in the world, who used to make me Mother's Day cards with crayon drawings of flowers and hearts. Where had that sweet child gone? When had she become this cold, calculating stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to her financial goals? I'm prepared, I said, and I was surprised by how much I meant it. In fact, I'm looking forward to it. The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls and paperwork. Ryan worked with lightning efficiency, and by 4 p.m., it was done. Nearly $380,000 in assets had been moved to accounts Jennifer couldn't access. My pension had been redirected. My investment portfolio was safely locked away in a trust that named Ryan as the sole successor trustee. Jennifer would wake up tomorrow with access to exactly $2,347.2083, the minimum balance needed to keep the old accounts active. Now what? I asked Ryan as we finished the last of the paperwork. Now we wait, he said, with a grin. And when she calls screaming about the money being gone, you tell her you have no idea what she's talking about. You're just a confused old lady. Remember, how could you possibly understand complex financial matters? I couldn't help but smile. You know what, Ryan? I think you might be right about me having cognitive issues. I can't seem to remember a thing about moving any money. That's the spirit. And Aunt Dorothy, when this is all over, I want you to know how proud I am of you. It takes courage to stand up to family, especially when they're trying to make you doubt yourself. That night, I made myself a cup of tea and sat in my favorite chair, the one Jennifer had said was too old and shabby for a proper home. I thought about what tomorrow would bring. Jennifer would check the accounts, probably first thing in the morning. She'd see the balances and panic. She'd call me, demanding to know where the money was. And I'd play the confused old lady she thought I was. But this time the confusion would be entirely on her side. I sipped my tea and smiled. Jennifer had no idea that underestimating her mother was about to become the most expensive mistake of her life. She'd treated me like I was helpless, like I was just a burden to be managed and discarded. Tomorrow, she'd learn that this old teacher still had a few lessons left to give. But what happened next made them realize their biggest mistake, ate part. I didn't have to wait long for Jennifer's reaction. Friday morning at 8:47 a.m., I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock, sipping my coffee and wondering how long it would take her to discover what I'd done. The phone rang with such violence that it seemed to shake the entire kitchen table. Mao, Jennifer's voice exploded through the receiver before I even finished saying hello. What did you do? The accounts are empty. There's nothing there. I took a calm sip of my coffee and put on my most confused voice. What accounts, dear? I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. Don't play games with me! Your savings account, your checking account, your investment accounts, they're all empty. Where is the money? Empty? I gasped, injecting just the right amount of worry into my voice. Oh my goodness, Jennifer, do you think someone stole it? Should I call the police? There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, Mom, stop this act right now. I know you moved the money. The bank told me you initiated transfers yesterday. Where did you put it? I paused, as if trying to remember. Transfers? Oh, yes, I think. Wasn't there something about putting money somewhere safer? But I can't remember exactly what. I let my voice trail off uncertainly.
What do you mean?
You can't remember. Jennifer was screaming now, all pretense of caring daughter completely abandoned. You moved $375,000 and you can't remember where. 375,000? I repeated, letting shock color my voice. That sounds like so much money. Are you sure that's right? Maybe I should write this down. Solid, focus. Where is the money? I could hear David shouting something in the background, but I couldn't make out the words. Jennifer covered the phone for a moment. I could hear muffled arguing. When she came back, her voice was dangerously controlled. Mom, I'm coming over right now. Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. Don't do anything until I get there. Of course, dear. Should I make some coffee? Oh, but maybe I should call the bank about this missing money. No, don't call anyone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat back in my chair and smiled. It was working perfectly. Jennifer had just revealed exactly what this was really about. Not my safety, not my welfare, but my money. She wasn't asking if I was okay or if I needed help. She was demanding to know where her inheritance had gone. I used the 20 minutes to prepare. I pulled out some old bank statements and scattered them on the kitchen table, looking confused and worried. I put on my oldest cardigan and made sure my hair looked a bit disheveled. If Jennifer wanted to see a confused old lady, that's exactly what she'd get. When Jennifer burst through my front door using her key without even knocking, she looked like a woman on the edge of a complete breakdown. Her usually perfect hair was messy, her makeup smeared, and she was still wearing her pajama top under a hastily thrown-on jacket. David was right behind her, looking equally frantic but trying to maintain some composure. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "we need to discuss your recent financial activities." I looked up at them with wide, worried eyes. "Oh, Jennifer. David, thank goodness you're here. Someone has stolen all my money. I don't understand what happened." Jennifer slammed her purse down on the table, scattering my carefully arranged bank statements. "Cut the act, Mom. I know you moved the money. The question is where and why and how we're going to fix this mess." Mess? I blinked at her innocently. "But dear, I thought you said I was too old to manage my own finances. If I moved money somewhere, surely that was a mistake? Maybe you should help me figure out what I did wrong." David stepped forward, clearly trying to be the voice of reason. "Mrs. Patterson, we're not angry, we're just concerned. Can you help us understand what happened yesterday? Did someone help you with banking?" This was perfect. They were trying to find out about Ryan without directly asking, probably hoping to contest whatever I'd done by claiming I'd been coerced or manipulated. "Yesterday," I furrowed my brow, as if trying hard to remember. "Oh, yes, I think there was something about making my money safer, but it's also confusing. These modern banking things are so complicated for someone my age." Jennifer's face was getting redder by the minute. "Rachel helped you. Did someone convince you to move the money? Because if they did, that's elder abuse, and we can get it reversed." I gasped. "Elder abuse? Oh my, do you really think someone took advantage of me? I just wanted to make sure my money was safe after you said." I stopped, as if catching myself. "After I said what?" Jennifer leaned forward. "Well, after you said I might need to go to that nice facility, I got worried about having enough money for it, so I thought maybe I should organize things better. But maybe I did it wrong." I looked up at her with such innocent confusion that for a moment even I almost believed my own. David was taking notes on his phone. "Mrs. Patterson, this is very important. Did anyone else know about your financial situation? Did anyone suggest moving the money?" Before I could answer, Jennifer exploded again. "This is insane. Mom, you've completely destroyed our plans. The deposit for Sunset Manor is due Monday. The realtor has buyers interested in the house. Everything was arranged." And there it was, the complete truth, straight from Jennifer's mouth. This had never been about my welfare. It was about their plans, their timeline, their financial arrangements made with my money. I let my face crumple, as if I was finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "Oh dear, did I ruin something important? I'm so sorry. Maybe if you help me remember where I put the money." "That's exactly what we're going to do," David said grimly. "We're going to call the bank right now and get to the bottom of this." For the next hour, I watched with secret delight as Jennifer and David made increasingly frantic phone calls. They called my old bank, demanding information about the transfers. They called Sunset Manor, trying to delay the deposit deadline. They even called a lawyer friend of David's, asking about options for reversing financial transactions made by elderly people. But every call hit the same wall. Yes, I had moved the money. No, they couldn't provide details about where it had gone due to privacy laws. No, there was no evidence of coercion or fraud. And no, the fact that I was 69 years old didn't automatically make my financial decisions invalid. "This is impossible," Jennifer finally screamed, throwing her phone down on my kitchen table. "You can't just make $300,000 disappear." "But Jennifer," I said softly, "I thought you said I was having cognitive problems. If that's true, how could I possibly have orchestrated something this complicated?" The logic trap hit her like a brick wall. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Either I was competent enough to manage complex financial transactions, in which case her incompetency threat was baseless, or I was truly confused, in which case yelling at me was pointless. David tried a different approach. "Mrs. Patterson, we're worried about you. Moving large amounts of money without telling family can be a sign of confusion or fear. Are you sure you're thinking clearly about this?" I looked at him with such sad, tired eyes. "David, dear, I've been thinking more clearly than I have in months. Jennifer told me I was a burden. She said I needed to be in a facility. She threatened to have me declared incompetent. I got scared that maybe I really was losing my mind, so I tried to organize my affairs better. Was that wrong?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer's face went white as she realized I just repeated her exact words back to her in front of her husband, making it clear that I remembered everything perfectly. Mom, she said weakly, that's not, I didn't mean. Didn't mean what? Dear? Didn't mean it when you called me a burden. Didn't mean it when you said I was too old to live in my own home. Didn't mean it when you sent that realtor to evaluate my house without my permission. Each question hit like a hammer blow. Jennifer sank into a chair, finally understanding that her confused, helpless mother had just outmaneuvered her completely. David looked between us, clearly trying to salvage the situation. Look, maybe we can work something out. If there was a misunderstanding about the facility. Oh, there was no misunderstanding, I said, my voice growing stronger and more confident with each word. I understood perfectly. My daughter saw my money as her inheritance and decided she didn't want to wait for me to die to claim it. She was willing to lock me away in an institution and sell my home to fund her lifestyle. The only misunderstanding was thinking I was too old and confused to fight back. Jennifer started crying, then not tears of sadness, but tears of frustrated rage. You don't understand. We have commitments. We owe money. David's business has debt, and You need my money to pay your debts, I finished calmly. I understand perfectly. What you don't understand is that it was never your money to begin with. But the joint accounts, Jennifer wailed. I'm on all of them. I have legal rights. Yes, I agreed. You had legal rights. Past tense, just like I had legal rights to move my own money wherever I wanted, which I did. David's phone buzzed with a text. He read it, and his face went ashen. Jennifer, the bank just confirmed the transfers are irreversible. They went to a trust account we can't access. The room fell silent except for Jennifer sobbing. She looked up at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Fear. Mom, please. We'll call off the facility. We'll stop talking about selling the house. Just please, we need that money. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, where I'd left Ryan's business card. If you need financial planning advice, I can recommend an excellent advisor. His name is Ryan, and he specializes in helping people protect their assets from exploitation. Jennifer's eyes widened as she recognized the name. Ryan? My cousin Ryan? You gave our money to Ryan? I gave my money to someone I trust, someone who cares about my welfare instead of my wallet, someone who calls me to check how I'm feeling instead of to check my account balances. The fight went out of Jennifer completely. She slumped in the chair, staring at the scattered bank statements on the table. David put his hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. What are we supposed to do now? She whispered. I sat back down across from her, my voice gentle but firm. You're going to do what adults do, Jennifer. You're going to solve your own problems with your own resources. You're going to stop treating your mother like a piggy bank and start treating her like a human being. And you're going to hope that someday when you really do need my help, when you need love instead of money, I'll still be willing to give it. David cleared his throat. Mrs. Patterson, what about the house situation? Jennifer is still on the deed. I smiled. Yes, she is. Which means if she wants to sell it, she'll need to convince me to agree. And the only way she'll do that is by treating me with the respect I deserve and proving that she cares about my happiness, not just my assets. Jennifer looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw a flash of the little girl she used to be. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just scared about money and you decided your fear was more important than my freedom, I finished. Jennifer, I'm not angry anymore. I'm disappointed. But I'm also proud of myself for remembering who I am and what I'm worth. Over the next few weeks, the full impact of my decision became clear. Jennifer and David had to drastically downsize their lifestyle. They sold David's expensive car and moved to a smaller house. Jennifer took on extra clients at her law firm. They canceled their planned European vacation and their country club membership. But something else happened too. Without my money as a safety net, Jennifer started calling me just to talk. Not about finances or living arrangements, but about her day, her worries, her hopes. We began having actual conversations instead of financial negotiations. 3 months later, Jennifer came to visit on a Sunday afternoon. She brought homemade cookies, burnt around the edges because she'd never been much of a baker, and we sat in my garden drinking tea. Mom, she said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Of course. That day you moved the money, were you really confused or was it all an act? I smiled, watching a butterfly land on my roses. What do you think? She laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in years. I think my mother is a lot sharper than I gave her credit for. And I think I deserved everything I got. You deserve to learn that love can't be bought and family relationships can't be based on financial transactions, I said. But you also deserve to have a mother who fought for herself instead of just giving up. Jennifer reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Mom. It took me losing everything to realize that what I almost lost was you. 6 months after that terrible day in my kitchen, I'm still living in my house. I still manage my own finances, and I still have a relationship with my daughter, a better one, built on respect instead of assumptions. Ryan visits every few weeks, helping me plan for a future that I get to choose. The money is still safely locked away, earning interest and waiting for the day when I decide what to do with it. Maybe I'll leave it to Jennifer, after all. Maybe I'll give it to charity. Maybe I'll spend it all on a world cruise. The point is, it's my choice to make. Jennifer learned that underestimating your mother can be expensive. But more importantly, she learned that some things, like dignity, independence, and self-respect, are worth more than any amount of money. As for me, I learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Even at 69, even when your own family has written you off, even when everyone expects you to go quietly into that good night. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be the victim everyone expects you to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who hurt you the most are the ones who need to learn the hardest lessons about love.